Hey guys, today's big question is how much money should you bring when moving to the UK? Now, in simple terms, the general rule of thumb is you should have about 3 months worth of living expenses with you when you move to the UK. The idea being you want to have enough of a financial cushion should it take you a while to get that first job and get paid. So something that might happen is you move here to the UK. It takes you 2 months to get a job, which is not unreasonable. However, perhaps you start that new job right after the payment period, so you work an entire month before you get paid. That means you'll be in the UK without any income for 3 months. But of course, throughout that time, you're going to have bills and rent payments and all sorts of stuff. Typically here in the UK, employers pay you once a month. But depending on when you are hired, that could be like you're going to get paid next week, but it also could be that they just had the payment schedule and you're not going to get paid for a month. When you get that first job, just make sure to ask, do they get paid at the beginning of the month? Is it at the end of the month? So you have a general idea when your first payment will come through. But until then, you need to have access to enough money to survive in the UK. So if the idea is that you want to have 3 months worth of expected living costs, how much is that? And that's a great question. For me, as a Canadian living in the southeast of England, so I am down in Kent, it's a bit expensive down here. I have a video on my channel all about my monthly costs to give you a better idea of how my bills are broken down and everything. Roughly, I spend about £1,300 each month. Some things to keep in mind is that I have all my bills and expenses split with my partner. So my partner and I both live here. We split all the costs. At the end of the day, it's roughly about £1,300 each per month. So for me, in this property, in this part of England, for 3 months of expected living costs, we're looking at about £3,900. Let's say £4,000. Now currently, that is around 4,800 US dollars or 6,500 Canadian. Now I would consider these figures to be on the upper end. So if you are able to move to the UK with £4,000 in savings that you can access, it will make things easier. Could you move to the UK with less than that? Yes. But it does put a lot more pressure on you. Another thing to consider is that if you are moving to the UK to be with your British partner, whether that is a common law, spouse, civil partnership, whatever, if you're coming to the UK to be with them, you probably can get by with bringing less money. Quite simply because you will have somebody here that can help you. For instance, if you can't get a job right away, or if they already live in a flat or a house, they can at least give you an idea of the rough costs so you can better budget. If you're moving to the UK totally by yourself, you don't have anybody here, you're going to have basically no safety net, so the more money you have access to, the better. Some visas also require you to have access to savings before you can even get approved for the visa. In particular, the Youth Mobility Scheme visa, which is the first visa that I came to the UK on, as part of the requirements for the visa, you have to have access to money. Currently, that is around £2,500 in savings. So in order to be approved for the visa right at the beginning, you have to have access to this money. When I moved to the UK on the Youth Mobility Scheme visa, I did have access to that amount of savings in order to get approved. I was coming to the UK to be with my British partner, so I had a bit more of a safety net, but I also did come with a bit more money. I think it was around £3,000. You are going to have to think about how quickly, realistically, is it going to take you to get a job. If you are coming to the UK to do literally any job, you'll work at a convenience store, you'll work at a grocery store, you probably can get a job pretty quickly. If you are coming to get a very specialized jobs where there are less openings, it could take you longer. So it's just something to consider. Whether you need to bring more or less money is realistically, how long is it going to take you to get a job? Now, for students coming to the UK for school, whether that is uni or otherwise, as part of your visa, you are going to need access to money. As someone on a student visa, you're going to need enough money to pay for your course for 1 academic year, which is 9 months. or up to 9 months. This particular number is going to be on your confirmation of acceptance for studies, or your CAS. And this number is actually dependent on where in the UK you're going to study, which is quite interesting. So if you are studying in London for up to 9 months, you are looking at £1,334 per month. For courses outside London, again, for up to 9 months, you are looking at £1,023 per month. What's interesting is for students coming to the UK to live in London, the amount that they are suggesting is actually the amount that I pay per month, which is around £1,300. Even though I don't live in London, I live close to London, which means everything is a bit more expensive, and I live in a larger property than a student house. Another thing to keep in mind is where in the UK you're going to be settling. London is one of the most expensive. Any region close to London is also expensive. Basically because a lot of people are commuting into the city, but that makes the sort of surrounding areas more expensive to live. Typically as well, the south of England is more expensive than the north. So I live in the south and I also live kind of close to London, which means my expenses and my bills are slightly higher. If you are looking to settle someplace else, particularly in the north of England, your monthly expenses are going to be a lot cheaper, which means you can bring less money. Now, the next question I get quite a lot is, okay, so say I'm going to bring £1,300 per month. I'm going to bring around £4,000 to get set up. Should this be in cash? Now, traveling with £4,000 in cash is scary and unnecessary. So much of daily life here in the UK is contactless, so it's really not necessary or appropriate to bring all of that money in cash. It's certainly helpful to have some money in cash just in case something happens, but I wouldn't recommend a lot in cash. Now, whatever amount you end up bringing, just make sure you can access it. Whether that's through an online account like PayPal or Wise, also formerly known as TransferWise, they're really good because you can have an account with multiple currencies and it's very borderless. You can use it in different countries. Or perhaps you are accessing your original bank account in your home country. It doesn't matter how much you have or what account you are using, but you need to make absolutely certain that you can access it when you are in the UK. And that could be as simple as contacting your bank and letting them know you are moving to the UK, so you will be making transactions in the UK so they are aware. So when those types of payments start coming through, they don't block your account for suspicious activity. Now, what did I do when I moved to the UK? Well, like I mentioned, I came on the Youth Mobility Scheme visa, which requires you to have around £2,500. I ended up having closer to £3,000, but I was also moving to the UK to be with my partner, so I knew I had a bit more of a safety net. I came with some cash, but very, very little. I'm talking like maybe £300 in cash, and that was it. Once I arrived in the UK, I opened a bank account with Lloyds, which is one of the larger high street banks. So once I opened my account, I then transferred some Canadian funds from my Canadian bank account into my UK account. Now, unfortunately, because Canadian dollars are weaker than British pounds, you end up losing quite a bit by transferring it. You also need to check if you have any conversion fees that you have to pay or like foreign transactions. So I just transferred enough to get me going, which after the cash that I brought over ended up being around 2,500, sort of verging closer to 3,000 pounds. So I transferred the money over. Then once I got my job, I was then paid into my UK account with British pounds. And at that point, I didn't need to worry about transferring any more money from home. I could live off of the savings that I brought with me, plus my new income. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. Definitely check out this video where I talk about how to open your first British bank account. But until then, I'll see you in the next one.